Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another update on the Sales Off project. And today, we have not one shot, not two shots, not even three shots, but no shots at all. No, I'm just kidding. We have 4 shots to show you guys today. These shots are all pretty different from each other. There's quite a lot of interesting things to talk about. Now, I'm not going to put these in order yet and show you guys like kind of the whole sequence. I don't want you guys to have to keep watching the same shots you already saw over and over again, and B, I'm sure you guys don't want the whole experience spoiled for you, so I'm just going to be balancing that back and forth. But let's get into each shot and we'll stop and talk about each one as we go along.
When I was a boy, I used to go fishing with my dad.
So this first shot was one of the earliest ideas that we had visually for the film, and it's actually one of the first shots in the film, right as Mr. Watterson is beginning his conversation with Vincent and Jake, and our perspective as the camera is actually inside of the fish tank. Now, despite this shot being pretty simple in terms of the movement going on and the dialogue being very small, there's a lot going on in this shot just in terms of layers. First of all, you might be wondering, how did you get that depth of field change in the middle of the shot where the focus of the camera pulls from the fish to Watterson? Well, it's actually pretty simple. I simply layered the fish and the fish tank on a separate layer, and then Watterson and everything in the background on another layer, and I just have a simple blur effect on each of those sections, and I just change them. They're kind of doing the opposite. One's getting blurry and one's clearing up. I just change those settings at the same time, and we get that really cool change in focus, and it's actually really simple to do. So now, to show you how this is all composited together, I'm just going to remove all of the layers and we're going to basically build the shot from the ground up. So we start with our backdrop, which is really simple. It's a static shot in this case, and then we have Vincent and Jake, who are sitting here looking at Mr. Watterson. Then we have Mr. Watterson himself, and then we have the tank. And you'll notice here that it's just the glass of the tank and then whatever props are in the tank. And in this shot you just see the statue. And then we have some fish swimming around, then the plants on top of those fish, and then there's one more fish that I've put on a separate layer to bring him in the foreground. Then we have just a few little bubbles you can see right there that I've just added as a separate effect. And that's all of the different layers. But now the question is, how do we make that look like it's underwater? And I achieve that by, well, first of all, changing the color to more of a blue tint. And then we add a series of wave effects, which if I tweak the settings here, you can see how that actually alters the image. And I do a couple different layers of this. There are different settings on the plants, and then there's 2 different layers of wave effects going on in the shot. And then we add those blur effects in there, and we have a really unique looking shot.
He always told the wackiest stories. One time he claimed he found the Loch Ness Monster in our little lake. Of course, I never believed them. I was smarter than that.
Now this shot was a little challenging because not only do we have Mr. Watterson walking and talking and moving about the scene, but it was also a bit of a challenge because there is a stylistic choice that I made pretty early on in the film to have the camera move at a different frame rate than the characters. And I've actually animated a little example to show you the difference in frame rates. So in this example we have a bouncing ball, and to the left the animation is at 12 frames per second, and to the right it's at 24. And you can see the difference in smoothness there. So in the Sales Off, I want the characters to move at 12 frames per second because in most traditional cases, that's the frame rate that 2D animation is animated in. I don't want the characters to move super smoothly like they're CG. I want them to look a little bit more on the 2-dimensional side. But the camera, on the other hand, I want to be pretty smooth. I want it to look like a film camera and have a real cinematic feel to the motion. What's nice is that 24 means that we just double the 12 frames per second animations. But if any of you in the comments are Blender users and you know some way to have different objects play back at different frame rates in the animation without changing the overall frame rate, let me know. I wonder if there's a better method out there than what I'm doing. But when it's all finished, although it might be kind of a small subconscious detail, I think that those frame rate differences look really neat.
Right. So Dad gets up out of his chair to move to another spot, and he just suddenly loses his balance and just plummets into the lake. So I say to him, I guess you're my catch of the day, Dad. Oh, God bless him.
Yes, God bless him, right. Sir, with all due respect, I wanted to talk to you about Jake. If we can't get his numbers up, then...
Once again, the wonderful actors that have worked on this project have delivered a stellar performance, and it is now my task to try to capture what they brought and sort of the soul of the character in the animation, which is never easy. There's a saying that goes around in animation that there are no easy shots, there are just shots that are less difficult, or shots that are less challenging. But there's a lot going on in this shot with Watterson's body language. It was just really important, like the shot that you guys saw in the last video, that this story that he's telling, that he's captivated by this story, and he's just laughing about it, and it's just so alive as he's telling the story. So there's a lot of just figuring out how his hands are moving, how his body's moving. Again, having video reference, actually listening to the line and doing the laugh like that, and watching what you do really helps. I've really been focusing in on the body language, which is something that I was always kind of scared to do in projects before this, but this time the dialogue and the performance and just the style of the story really puts the body language in the forefront, so it forces me to face those fears of animating their body movements. And something funny happened here that maybe you guys noticed in this shot. He bumps his mug, and the reason why he bumps his mug is because it's in the way, and I considered maybe just moving the mug out of the shot a little bit, but I thought it would be funnier to just flat out have him bump the mug. I actually recorded this session of animating and made it into a little time lapse for you guys to see here. In the beginning, I'm doing the rest of the body animation. You can see me moving his arm and his fingers there, and then I move over to the face, and the first step here, as you see, I'm just so focused during all of this, but I'm just keyframing all of the mouth shapes. I'm just doing the lip syncing first here, just moving this little rig that I've set up over here to swap those mouth shapes over. Sometimes I probably make the face that Watterson is making at that point, just because I think you tend to do that when you're animating. Now I'm actually moving his head, changing the angles. I bring up a little notepad there where I've indicated what frames I want his head to turn. And now I'm just going ahead, positioning his mouth. I'm getting the reference shot in there so I can line up his eye line with Jake and Vincent's. And I'm just going part by part animating the face. I'm doing the blinks and the eyelids and then the pupils here. And then I believe I move on to the eyebrows next. And if there's any other things, sometimes I like to move his glasses a little bit, or if I need to do any kind of depth changes with his head. But for the most part, it's just the eyes and the eyebrows, really. But hopefully, if there's any animators out there, you can pick up maybe some tips and tricks. And really, as I'm going about animating this, I'm still learning a bunch myself. And that's the 4 new shots I wanted to show you guys today. And that puts us around the minute 40-second mark into the film, which is exciting because part 1 I think is only going to be around 5 minutes. So we're actually getting closer and closer to completing the first sort of episode of The Sails Off. And once again, a big thank you to each and every one of you for watching this video, for following along with the progress of this film, and for those of you who are watching that were a part of this. It's really been a fun journey, and I'm excited to continue moving along in the story. But until next time, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your week, have a great weekend, and I'll see you all in the next video.